Welcome back, y'all. Today we're going to review Ready to Love Season 3, Episode 6, titled Friends with Benefits. This episode got me in my feelings. It got my pressure up. It got me very upset. And I was really eager to do this review because I just got all these thoughts and emotions and things that I just got to get off my chest. So this week we see that the women are in a power position and they will be doing eliminations. Their friends will be coming from out of town to meet the men that they like and ask them all these questions to kind of get a better sense of who they are and who's the best match for their friend. But before we get to that, the episode starts off with Symone apologizing to Jay. So last week, or maybe the week before, she had snitched on him, telling Joy that he had went to Winter's room, and it all came back up. The two girls spoke to her and they resolved the issue, but I guess she felt the need to talk to Jay and apologize to him, which is very mature. He handled it well. He accepted her apology. She talked a little bit more about, she's going through some things, or she's going through a growing process. She's evolving, and it was poor behavior on her part. She's sorry. He receives her apology, and that's pretty much it. So the first friend that we see is Nyya's friend. She brings her friend Kiki in, her sister cousin friend, and they meet up with Kris. So Kris and Nyya have been pretty tight since episode 1. The two of them kind of separated themselves from the rest of the group and were seeming to be all into each other. The three of them get together. They're playing this oversized chess game. And Kiki, I think that's her name, Nyya's friend, asks Kris, what does he think about finances? So this is where everything goes left. Kris says that he knows that Nyya makes more money than him. There's no money in radio. He's doing this because he loves it, which was mistake number 1. You're basically telling her you ain't got no money. And that's okay. But I guess the way it came out was just like, look, I don't have no money. She's going to be the breadwinner. So that rubbed Nyya the wrong way. Then to make matters worse, he goes into more detail and he says that they would be splitting the mortgage, splitting the utilities, and he would pay for the water and she'd pay for the car insurance. And he just starts going into too much detail. But once he said that they were going to split the mortgage, it was a wrap. Nyya was all the way checked out. She was not feeling it. You could tell her friend knew she wasn't feeling it. The energy changed immediately. And you can tell that Kris knew that the energy changed, and he realized that he made a mistake. Nyya asked some follow-up questions, I guess in an attempt to get him to clarify, either to confirm what he just said or to clean it up. And he says something along the lines of, I see my role as filling in the gaps. Another mistake. It sounds like he's going to let her do all the work and then he'll just kind of fill in where necessary. Again, does not sound good at all. He digs himself deeper into a hole, and we'll see later that there really is no digging himself back out. In her confessional, Nyya mentions that she's had all these miscarriages and she wants to have another baby and she doesn't have a lot of time and she doesn't want to be stressed about finances while she's trying to have another baby. So it makes it seem as if that's the reason why finances are a significant issue for her as she's in her quest to find love and in deciding who she wants to move forward with in a relationship. Sounds okay. It kind of makes sense, but it's her reaction to this and it's the way she behaves later that really have me having issues with Nyya. And I'm going to talk about that later because this is what really triggered me in this episode. So I just want to kind of put it out there. This is like he said, what she said, where they're both coming from. But I have very strong opinions about this and how she carries on later. But we'll get to that. We see a scene next when Kris is sitting at the pool with Joy and with Symone and letting them know what happened in his conversation with Nyya and her friend. Now, he and Joy know each other from before the shows. They already have this friendship. So it was really nice to see a moment where he was just sitting with his friend and with another one of the women and just giving them a recap of what had happened and talking a little bit about how he realized where he went wrong. And they affirmed for him that, yeah, you know, what you said wasn't good. And they in essence, they explained why what he said was a problem. You know, Joy makes a really good point of saying that if you tell a woman in the very beginning that you guys are going to be splitting everything, she might then assume that that means we're going to be splitting everything. You know, we're going to be splitting dinner, we're going to be splitting vacations, and you know, that doesn't sit well with many women. So she was giving him a woman's point of view as to how Nyya may have perceived that statement. I also like the fact that they weren't passing judgment on Nyya. They were essentially playing, you know, just laying out both sides of the story and giving him some perspective and also helping him figure out how he can try and fix it. He received it. He knows that he might have said the wrong thing, and he was receptive to their constructive criticism and trying to figure out how he could fix it with her. The next friends that show up on the scene are Winter and Joy's friends. They decide to do this as a foursome. So it is Joy and Jay, Winter and Edwin, because all four of them kind of like each other. So we know that Joy and Jay have had a connection since day one. At some point, Jay expressed interest in Winter. Edwin has had a little bit of a connection with both of the women. So I guess they decide it's just easier to just have everybody together. So Joy's friend comes in, Winter's friend comes in, and the six of them sit down and they talk. The first question was really awkward. And I don't remember whose friend it was who asked, but they asked Jay, what is it that Joy has that Winter doesn't? And that wasn't appropriate, in my opinion. You know, we get it. We know that this is something of a competition, but to put him on the spot and make him answer a question like that, there's no way he can answer that without hurting somebody's feelings or without seeming like he wasn't answering the question. And it also puts the woman in a position where it's almost like it's pitting them against each other. So I didn't like that at all. I mean, I don't know if she was just trying to make good television, if she was just trying to be messy or what, but it just wasn't a good question. Jay answered it pretty well. He kind of maneuvered out of that. But then the next question was, who's your number one? So even if he was able to sidestep that last question, there's really no way out of answering this next question about who's your number one. I mean, it's black and white. So he was honest and he said that he and Joy had a connection first. So essentially saying that Joy is his number one. That hurt Winter's feelings. You know, she took it on the chin, but in her confessional, she admits that that didn't feel good. Again, that was not a good question. And I don't know why that woman would ask that. It just, nothing good could come out of that, you know, especially in this environment. It's going to play itself out eventually. So why put all these people in a position where they have to feel uncomfortable? But, you know, I guess it makes for good television. We see Nyya have a conversation with Edwin, and she asks him the same questions that she and her friend had asked Kris. It's clear what she wants him to say. It's clear that there's a lot weighing on his response, because if he says anything similar to what Kris said, Nyya is going to find herself in a situation where she has nobody she's interested in this environment, or she's just going to have to accept something, because I think she's so disappointed with Kris that it's so much more important that Edwin says the right thing so that she can switch her focus. And Edwin does, and it could be because the way she framed the question, it almost sounds like the way she framed the question, it was clear the answer that she wanted. And Edwin's not stupid. Anybody asked that question, framed the way it was, is going to know that, hey, she just asked Kris, the other guy she's interested in something, he didn't answer correctly. Here's my opportunity to say the right thing, to say what she wants to hear. And he says it. He says something along the lines of, you know, he's a provider. He wants to do everything he can to make sure that, you know, she doesn't have to worry and that, you know, all the bills are paid and blah, 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 blah. She eats it up. She starts rubbing on his scalp, and then she kisses him. This is the beginning of the decline of Nyya in my eyes. We see the next scene where Nyya and Kris are eating dinner together. Not really together. It seems like they're like in this cafeteria setting, and Kris came and put his tray down and sat across from Nyya because you can tell she's over him. Kris now is trying to backpedal. He's trying to change it up. He knows he messed up. He had the conversation with Joy and with Symone in which he kind of came up with a new script, and he gives it to her. He leans over the table and says, you know, hey, I realize I messed up earlier. You know, I may not have phrased this properly. I know that it's not cool for, you know, a couple to be splitting bills. You know, no woman wants to have a roommate. He's saying all the right things. But it's too late. Nyya has already checked out. Her energy is different. She's sitting there eating her food, wrapped up in her shawl. And, you know, it's obvious that she's over this man. And she doesn't even have the courtesy to pretend like she's not over him. Kris goes on to try to qualify what he said, saying something along the lines of, you know, there's a lot of independent women out here and they want to do the most and they don't want anybody taking care of them. So, you know, you kind of, I don't know how you would have felt about that. And he's scrambling right now. He's scrambling. And I think he's scrambling because he knows his words are not landing with her. It was uncomfortable to watch. I felt really bad for him, because he really, really likes her. Even from last week, he said how she's just running around his head. He never even made an interest to make a connection with anybody else because he's so into her. And for her to just kind of shut him down so instantly and so coldly was just really disheartening. Adriana brings her friend Morgan down, and they meet up with Rashid. But before Rashid gets there, Adriana tells her friend that she's also feeling Khalfani. And as she describes him, all she's talking about is his nice body and the muscles and the dark skin and all this other stuff. And it sounds superficial. And her friend picks up on this because after meeting Rashid and hearing his answers, which were very solid, very honest, very mature, her friend brings up the fact that it sounds like Adriana's thing about Khalfani is superficial. And it's not really, there's not a lot of substance to this. So it was nice to see that her friend observed that, because I think that's what we've all been observing as well. And there's a part of me that wonders if Adriana is interested or pursuing Khalfani because Denise has a thing for him, or Denise thinks that he's hers. Because you remember a couple episodes, Denise came at her sideways. She said, you know, she was cutting her off. She was being rude to her. She just made some really, she was just being a bitch to her, basically. And I wonder if Adriana knows that by showing Khalfani some interest, this is going to get under Denise's skin. I don't know. I'm speculating here, but I would not be surprised. Stranger things have happened. And because I hate Denise so much, I don't even care. So Adriana, rock on. Speaking of Denise, and I'm only doing this because I guess she's part of the story and I gotta talk about her. She and her friend meet up with Khalfani and Anthony. Anthony had showed her a little bit of energy last week after she almost got voted off. She's obviously had a thing for Khalfani since day one. They out there playing some kind of game out on the deck, and they ask questions. And then at the end, her friend says, you know, I really think Khalfani's the one for you. You have all this energy. You really seem to like him, blah, blah, blah. Here we get into the good part. So now we're at the elimination, and Tommy has all the ladies sitting around, and he does the normal drill. So who you like, who don't you like, who's not ready to love, who's ready to go home. So they start going around, and they are kind of recapping what their friends thought about all of their respective men. We start with Symone, and she says that her best friend couldn't make it because something happened with her kid. My question is this: who is Symone going to introduce her friends to? Because I haven't seen Symone have any kind of conversation with a man. Like the last conversation she had with a man was with with Jay when she had to apologize to him. Nobody's checking for her. And I have some thoughts. I think well, she started off wrong, you know, that lawyer in her, she started off interrogating people. Then when she was almost eliminated first on the first episode. She got saved somehow, and then she sat at a table with a bunch of people and she started talking about her daddy issues and she started crying and all this other stuff. Then the next time we saw her, she was dry snitching. Then she got called to task for that. Then she started crying again and talking about her issues. And then she had a conversation with Jay where she apologized. And she says again that she's a work in progress. And so I think the problem with Symone is that she seems like a lot of work. I think she's a really nice person. I think she's a good person. But I don't know that she should be here on this show at this time because it seems like she has a lot of baggage to unpack. She has some issues in her past, and I know she's working on it. She's going to therapy and all this other stuff, but she seems rather emotional often, and I can see how the men on the show might be like, that's just a little too much. Especially since the other women seem to be a lot more emotionally balanced. I could see why they would put their interests toward other women, because Symone there's a lot there. And, you know, once you get to a certain age too, you start to see the signs early on and you go the opposite direction. So I think she kind of missed her shot to make a connection. So it's interesting that she's still here. Well, it's not interesting. I think she's still here because the other women have just really been worse. So she's kind of here by default. And I'm pretty sure she's going to be one of the next ladies to go. But I don't know if it's a lie that her friend didn't make it because of an emergency, or if nobody was ever planning to come, because I don't know who that girl was going to talk to. And I also find it interesting that Symone, even given everything I just said about her and all her issues, has nobody. Meanwhile, Denise has 2 men. Because Denise got issues too. It's just the difference is how they express them. Symone gets emotional and she cries, and Denise gets angry and bucks up and has all this energy and this angry black woman thing going on with her. But she's got issues too. All of that is just a cover up for her issues. So I don't know. And I know I'm talking bad about this girl every time I get on this camera, but I really, really dislike her. I really dislike her. Oh, she makes me angry. And look, I don't know. So anyway, what happens next? So Winter and Joy talk about their friends and what their friends' take was on Edwin and Jay. Didn't seem like there was a lot of positive energy for either. They did not like Jay because they thought he was a bit of a showman. And I see what they're saying. Jay always has the right answer. He always says the right thing. He's smooth. You know, Jay knows what he's doing. And even when they were all sitting at the table, he sidestepped one question, he answered the other question, and then he was like, okay, I'm gonna go, I'll let you guys talk. And he left, and it was obvious that he didn't want no more questions. So I like the way that he pulled himself out that situation. He's smooth. He knows what he's doing. And the 2 women obviously saw it. And it seemed like Edwin was the choice for both of their friends for them. Interesting observation about Edwin. Edwin is either a slow burn or he's out there picking up scraps, because when the show first started, nobody was really checking for Edwin. And now he's got the interest of Joy, Winter, and Nyya. And there's somebody else, I think, who he was feeling, or who was feeling him. And I'm like, where did this come from? It's like he just kind of came from behind and he waited for the other guys to mess up and then he went in for the kill. We all know those dudes. So I'm not wholly impressed with Edwin. He talks a lot and he seems like he's a little bit in his head, but you know, it's working with the ladies. And I think what he's doing is he's doing the shy guy thing where he's kind of sitting back in the cut and not saying a lot, and then, you know, kind of going in for the kill once he sees an opening. Here we go with Nyya. Like I said, in the beginning, she asked a question, she didn't like the answer. Fine. She went to go talk to Edwin, you know, and basically sent him an assist to say the right thing. He said it. She feels good about that. Kris tries to come back and apologize, and she gives him the Heisman. So now we get to the elimination, and Tommy asks her directly, so, you know, what's up with, you know, you and Kris, and that was your dude. And she says, I was never gung-ho on Kris. So Tommy, like the rest of us, are confused. Like, wait, hold on a second, because this is like the third time you sat on this couch, and every time you've been talking about Kris. We got a whole clip in the beginning of y'all out there paddle boating and hugging up on each other and all sorts of stuff. So what, now you're not gung-ho about him? Like, bitch, like, act like we don't have all this recorded. And so Tommy asks her, he's like, hold on, like, what? I don't understand what you're saying. She says, I was just obliging his interests. A, it's a lie. B, it's mean. I don't have a C, but it's mean. Why would you say that? Don't play this man out because he didn't say what you wanted him to say. Fine, he's not the one for you. Okay, move on to the next one. But you don't have to play this man out, act like, you know, he'd been pursuing you and you know, and you were not equally interested in him. That's just not cool. Like, your true colors are showing, and you strike me as the type of person who, when she doesn't get what she wants or she doesn't hear what she wants to hear, she just cuts people off. Probably her friends, her family, like, she just strikes me as one of those kind of people, and I don't like that at all. Kris is a nice guy. He may not be the one for you, but he's a nice guy. You don't gotta do him like that. And I hope during the reunion he gets on her ass. He probably won't though, because he's a nice guy, but somebody needs to. Symone even tries to speak up for him and say, well, you know, we spoke at the pool, and she cut Symone off on some rudeness. Like, Nyya, yo, that's just not a good look, and it's really making me feel like I know why you're single. Is there's an evil streak to you. There's an evil streak there where you just cut people off like that and then pretend like they didn't even matter to you in the beginning. That's not what's up. It's now time for the women to have one-on-ones with the men who are at the bottom too. So we see Kris and Joy meet up. You know, it's like two friends talking because they are friends and they've known each other from before the show. And she tells him that, you know, he's not ready for love according to them, but she knows that he is. And I'm glad that it was her that had the opportunity to have that one-on-one with him, because it really softened the delivery of the message. And I think that it was probably good that he saw a friendly face on his way out. And I felt bad for Kris. You could tell he was really hurt, and he knows that what he said was a mistake. And I feel bad even saying it was a mistake, because it was his truth. It was his honesty. And if that's what he meant, then that's what he meant. And you don't have to like it, but then that just means he's not for you. And there's some women out there who will be fine splitting the mortgage with him. I mean, let's be real. A lot of women are splitting mortgages with their boyfriend or their husband. It's just a reality of this world that we live in right now. And there's nothing really wrong with that. I mean, if you don't want that, that's fine. But it in and of itself is not it's not a bad thing. So to treat it as if it's so taboo, it's just disheartening. This really struck a nerve with me. And if he's being honest with you, he's being honest. You know, these are the same people who, if he said, nah, I pay for all the bills, I'll handle everything, and then when you get in a relationship with him, he either can't do it or he won't do it, and then you'd be mad because you said he lied to you. So I'd prefer somebody tell me the truth. And if it's some truth that I can't rock with, then I don't rock with it. But I'm not going to disparage you. I'm not going to kick rocks at you because your truth doesn't match up with my preferences. So I say this all to say that I feel really bad for him. And I hope that he doesn't really kick himself and think that he messed up so bad because the woman he liked didn't like his answer. This is a learning moment for him. And I think, he may think more about his words, or he might think more about his position on this topic and maybe make some changes. But I don't really think he did anything that was so bad. So I just feel bad for him. And he did say that he was going to take a break as he looked for love, which is more evidence to how much he really liked her. Because instead of popping his collar and walking off like, well, it's all good, I know I'm gonna find her, she gonna find me, and all those other things that people say when they leave because they're trying to save face. He took it on the chin, and he sat there in that little chair, and he looked sad, and he was contemplating this whole journey and what he's going to do next. So I like the fact that he says he's going to take some time and just kind of be by himself and think things through. That's the mature way to handle it, so that the next time you are ready and you are not just that you're not just on a rebound and trying to fill up your space when you know that you're really not ready to move on. The other couple we see is Denise talking to Brian. So this is the second time that Denise has been the woman to tell somebody that they're going home or they're staying. And I don't know why she's the one. Now Brian, I get what they're saying about Brian, that whole situation with Alicia, not being honest. Okay, yeah, that was wrong. But they're crucifying him over it. It's not that serious. So the fact that there's all this kind of like all these strong feelings against Brian, I'm not really sure I understand. Denise, she lays into him. She's talking about trust and woman and finding love, and she's talking down to him. She's being aggressive. The same thing she did on the first week when she was talking to David, I think his name was, like pretty much chastising him. And it's annoying because, number one, that's not your fight. He didn't do nothing to you. Number two, just last week you were on the chopping block and you were sitting there all quiet and nervous and shook that you were going to be sent home. That man did not talk to you crazy. He didn't chastise you for your behavior that got you in the hot seat, ready to go home. He just had a conversation with you. So why do you feel the need to be so combative with this guy? I don't know. And it really makes me believe because you are just an unhappy person. And any opportunity you get to lash out at somebody else, you take it, and you take it gladly. She's that woman at the restaurant who talks sideways to the waiters and waitresses. She's the one who's rude to the customer service reps. Like that, she's that chick. And I hate that chick. Like, I don't know why is this chip on your shoulder, lady? Well, she lays into Brian. He takes it really well. He receives everything she says. And she does all this just to tell him that he's staying, that he's not going home. I really, really dislike this woman. And I really hope that they never let her be on a one-on-one and talk to people at the end anymore. It's just not, she's just too much. She's too much. And this is, again, when I go back to, like, she got two dudes interested in her and Symone has none. I don't get it. Well, that was the whole episode. This was a good one. And it was good because it drew out some emotions for me. I know this is just a reality show and everything, but this one really, I'm doing my review the next day. I rarely do that, but I just had so many things to talk about and things to get off my chest. So that was this episode. Next week, it's going to kick up a notch. We're going to see some issues where some unlikely couples start to get together. I don't know if the men are going to have an opportunity to bring their friends. That would be cool. So finally, the tables can turn and the woman will be in the hot seat. But yeah, this is good. This season is really, really amazing. I'm enjoying it much more than the last two, I have to say. So that's all I got. Let's talk about it. If you got any comments, tell me what you think, who you think is going to be next to go home. Yeah, that's really it. So I will talk to you guys next week. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Bye.